All right, as you're joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and answer the connector question we have for you today, which is, what's your favorite summer activity? And you'll see that Jameen is also putting in the sign-in link. So if you can just make sure to sign in so we know that you're here today, that would be great. And welcome everyone. And feel free as you're joining to answer the connector question in the chat. What's your favorite summer activity? Kristen floating the pool, listening to 80s and 90s top hits. That sounds really lovely. Navdeep also put pool time. Stephanie, warm evenings, plenty of sunshine, homemade ice cream sounds fabulous. Just a lot of water, right? Being on the water, lakes, rivers, pools, all is lovely. Peter, Lake Leelanau, is that right? Nice. Is that up in Humboldt County?
No, it's in Northwest Lower Michigan.
Oh, in Michigan.
It's the
Nice.
pinky of the mitten.
Ah, nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Peter, I'm going to be there in August. Maybe we'll cross paths.
I will not be there in August, but we definitely, it'd be fun to connect there, Dennis, for sure.
Wait, Dennis, you're going to be at that lake?
Yep. That
Oh
Traverse City, Leelanau Peninsula area is second home in the sense.
Nice.
I got chosen family up in that neck of the woods I'll be spending time with.
Love
That's
it.
amazing.
Perfect. The mitten. Love it. All right. Well, we're 3 minutes in, so I want to respect everyone's time. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ronita Guha from Education First. You've seen me on these calls. I'm going to kick it over to Sohail to open us up.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ronita, and welcome, everybody. Very much in line with the connection conversation in the chat. Happy summer. Well, thanks for being here. This marks essentially the final meeting of the Collaborative Leadership Working Group for year 2. And so as we round the corner for year 3, we're going to spend some time focused on where we've been and where we're going. And as was noted in the email with the pre-reading and the agenda, today is really about supporting our counties and reflecting on the progress and potentially setbacks over the past year, right? This is a roller coaster of a process here. And then really help craft and determine the focus of next year and what steps are really needed to happen over the summer and beyond to sustain that momentum. So I'm looking forward to that. I also just want to acknowledge we're in Pride Month. Juneteenth recently just passed, and these are hard-fought moments, right, of reflection and celebration, and also a reminder that we have a ways to go. And so appreciate your efforts, in particular, taking these broader themes, but actually operationalizing them in pragmatic ways and the work you do to support kids and families. So again, thank you. I'm going to pass back to Ronita for walking through the agenda and some of the learning objectives to kickstart the meeting. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sohail. Before I start, I want to just make sure to introduce our team. I'm really excited to welcome Ann Duffy from the Ed First team, who's joining us as an extra pair of hands to help with facilitation. And Brinny and Olivia are here from our team as well. You've met them. Bill is out on a much well-deserved vacation, so that's why we've asked Ann to jump in. So excited to have her here with us. All right. So just want to recap what we're planning to do today. Olivia, I'm wondering if you could put the meeting objectives up. There we go. Okay. So as Sohail alluded to, we want to spend a lot of time together really sharing takeaways and talking about next steps from the discussion at our May meeting. We're really focused on developing shared cross-agency goals, outcomes, and dashboards. We spent a lot of time talking about data. We also want to spend some time reflecting on the lessons, successes, and challenges from this past year and think about how we want to move forward. So there's going to be a lot of looking back and looking forward during this meeting. And then we want to talk about how the outcomes from T2 align with some of the existing priorities in each of your counties and how they're going to be advanced and accomplished over the summer and over the next year, and really start to identify concrete areas where you're all going to need technical assistance or more learning to move forward. And then finally, as always, we want to spend time continuing to build relationships. And so on the next slide, you'll see the meeting agenda. And the agenda roughly follows what I just said. Again, spending the first part of our time talking about cross-agency goals and shared data, which is much more of the looking back. And then we really want to spend time looking forward and how we're going to accomplish the T2 outcomes in year 3 and really start do some planning in our demo county breakout groups. So that's where we're headed. And then just looking forward a bit over the summer, the T2 team's going to be working with each county to further flesh out their plans and help them identify what kind of help they're going to need and technical assistance they're going to need to really be successful next year. And so just to get the ball rolling, I just want to recap what we did in year 2. And so you'll see on the next slide, there we go. Looking back, we really organized the content of these meetings around the 4 implementation steps in the CYBHI ecosystem paper. And we really focused on that first step, building an effective structure for cross-agency leadership and establishing a shared vision. So we spent a lot of time with our counties on that element. And then we spent the last couple of months in March and May really exploring the content and ideas from the second step, which includes conducting a needs assessment, engaging community as authentic partners, and sharing data across agencies. So that's where we're gonna, that's where we are right now. And I just wanna really quickly pause and see if folks have any reflections. What would you say was your biggest accomplishment or learning in year 2? And that could be either working group members or county demo sites, just anyone, any big learnings or accomplishments from this year that you might want to voice over, because y'all did a lot. There was a lot of work this year.
I guess I'll
Okay.
go. We're all being so quiet. Uh,
Thank you, Peter.
I think I'm alone here today for Humboldt, but certainly proud of the advancements that we've made this year. I'll just touch on a few. One, we got our MOU signed and worked with a group of consultants, and I feel that we were really able to leverage expertise from this group. I mean, really big special thanks to Elizabeth, Michael, and Richard Connect for working with our teams and being available for us. So that was I think what that really helped was to sort of look through the lens of T2 while approaching that 2083 work, which really assisted in that process. And I also a big hat tip to the people at Mathematica who worked closely with us over the last couple years with the Spotlight. I think that those spotlights have been a really nice stepping off point to have conversation around what it means to move towards integration. Um, and I'll just say that right now we're planning something at the beginning in the fall, at the beginning of the school year, to bring folks together, bring Mathematica here to share that spotlight with community partners, and then also have sort of a symposium around the shared vision of integration, I would say. So a lot of good things have been happening, and I think T2 has been this it's created buoyancy in the process.
Buoyancy.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And that's great. I love that you've got the MOU and that you're bringing Mathematica to come share the learnings. I think that's all really great. Anyone else want to jump in and share a learning or an accomplishment?
I can jump in right here. Armando Lopez, Imperial County COE.
part of the demo sites. This has been a very slow process for us, but definitely moving in the right direction. I think one of the bigger accomplishments in coming together around the work that we're doing at Imperial County through what we call the core group meetings, as we come together with different departments and really taking a look at the work that we're doing to make sure that we're supporting the county and not duplicating some of that work, but being intentional and purposeful around that. And stepping into the conversations with about AB 2083 and just the work that is happening in Imperial County, and for myself, just around learning more around whether it's a consortium, whether it's an EAC, whether it's a Juvenile Justice Commission. There's a lot of great work that is happening across the county that we need to tap into a little bit more. And so, we're not quite there at the MOU, but I'm hoping that in the near future, I've had conversations recently with Elizabeth, Michael, and Richard around supporting some of that work through an ILT meeting that we're trying to coordinate here locally. And so we're super excited about what that's going to bring in. And then connecting it all to the CHA chip and the work that has happened here across the county, where I have Alvaro and Lauren here, along with a couple of other folks from the county office that have been supporting some of this work. And so just super excited about where we're going to be going with this work that we're doing.
It's terrific. Thank you, Armando. Chris, do you want to jump in? You're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry, Monday morning. Chris Stonemertz from the California Alliance of Child and Family Services, and I am not from a demonstration site, but have been lucky enough to participate here representing nonprofit community-based organizations that are doing a lot of work with schools, and just sort of seeing, and supporting the work that's happening here, and really excited to see sort of the accomplishments that and the movement that the offices of ed and their partners have made. So it is also my last meeting, I think, representing the California Alliance of Child and Family Services, because I'm going to be leaving my position at the end of June. But Adrienne Shilton, who is also on the call, is our Vice President of Public Policy and Strategy, and she is going to be stepping in to represent from the Alliance. So, Adrienne, do you want to just say hello? Sorry to interrupt your flow. I wasn't sure what the right time was.
Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you, Chris, for your thought partnership and leadership in this space. We've been really just so fortunate to have you as part of the working group. And Adrienne, welcome. We're excited to have you, and would love for you to just do a quick introduction.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Adrienne Shilton. I'm our Vice President of Public Policy with the California Alliance, leading our policy and advocacy efforts on behalf of the organizations that we represent. Based in Sacramento, my background is in public policy and advocacy work in behavioral health. So excited to join this group. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad to have you here, Adrienne. All right. Well, I'm going to move us to the next part of our agenda, which is to talk about some of the takeaways and possible next steps from last month's discussion around developing shared cross-agency goals, outcomes, and dashboards. And I'm going to actually pass it over to Mike to talk about some of those lessons. And then we're going to spend some time hearing from each of the counties about their reflections, next steps, and ideas for moving this data conversation forward. So, Mike.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate everybody being here. And I put it in the chat, but I also want to say it publicly. And Chris will not like this, but you have done so much. I just need to recognize all you have done in California, and for the Alliance, and for all the Alliance members, plus anyone. It really is a profound impact on our kids and families. So you deserve lots of love and a big round of applause.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mike.
so the key lessons shared from last time. Jumping in, I wanted to remind people that the data feedback loops are part of the 4 key ecosystem implementation features. So we talk a lot about vision, mindset, structure, but we need to also align and ensure that our data sets and that we're collecting data and we're using that data. We're not just admiring the data. And we need to kind of consider agreed upon cross-agency data sets, data that's connected to your counties and the demonstration counties, whole child vision for our children. So that vision, function, and mindset. I'm going to use a quick example here of what Sacramento presented. Not on the slide, but they presented their vision and mindset. Children, youth, and families are safe, healthy, and able to thrive. That's Sacramento's vision for their ILT. The data they collected to do that, if you remember, are referrals for part of their data, referrals for home visitation services, parents engaged in parenting classes, families engaged in parent/child family meetings, so our CFTs. The feedback loop from all of that data sets to the ILT is to monitor, is this leading to reduced entry rates in foster care? Is it reducing rates of maltreatment? So in Sacramento, they have their vision. They have these data sets that they're monitoring. And then they have their question, is it doing these things? And we saw last month, it seems like I almost said last week because it feels like last week, how robust that data set is around these features, suicide prevention and other elements. And that brings us to the next feature when we're looking at data. It doesn't need to be hard. We don't need to invent new data sets. Look at data that already exists, that's easily accessed. Things like that California Healthy Kids Survey, universal screening is happening more and more and more at our district and school level. County public health data, still admire in Placer's public health dashboard that they have. There's lots of data to be found from your public health departments, data related to suicidality and suicide, attendance, referrals for probation, hospitalization, and more. All of this data is pretty easily accessed. So we don't need to, for a lot of counties that don't have a robust team to create data sets and do these deep dive mining. I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's readily available data that's consistent with your vision, mission, and mindset. Relationships are always key in every part of our system of care, ecosystem of care, and particularly around data, even metadata. Without relationships, sometimes our other agencies might say, well, I can't share that with you. And I hear that about publicly accessible data sometimes. So relationship, establish those trust and relationships, and then identify a clear focus for your measure. So back to vision, function, and mindset. What's the story we want to tell in our county? Our children in Sacramento, children and youth and families, safe, healthy, able to thrive. Clear, concise. Now, how does Sacramento tell that story to the public? How do we tell that to our constituents? How do we tell that story to each other? I think we're going to hear from the counties, so I'll turn it back over to Renita.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. So we actually want to spend a little bit of time, like I said, inviting each of our county teams to talk about their plans and next steps for moving forward their efforts around data and outcomes. And so I'm going to call on each county. You got a couple of reflection questions that we asked you to sort of think about in advance of this meeting. So how are you planning to use any of the examples offered at the May meeting to help advance efforts in your county to refine, measure, and improve any cross-agency family youth well-being outcomes? And how are you advancing these ideas within your county office of ed or within your ILT or EAC groups? So, does someone want to volunteer from a county office, or should I just call on someone? Dennis, can I maybe kick it off with you?
I was going to say, because Alameda comes first in the alphabet, it's going to be me anyway. So
there we go. I can go reverse order.
Yeah.
I can go reverse order, but why do we go? Where do we go?
It's all good. I'm happy to go. First of all, happy June, everybody. Happy Juneteenth. Happy Pride. Happy month of Immigrant Heritage Month. There's so much to celebrate and so much important work that we have to do. I've been unplugged from the internet for most of the past week, and it appears that some things have happened over the past week. So, just thinking about all of you and appreciate being in community of co-conspirators at this time. So the question disappeared, but the question was around data. But I want to step back first of all, just to talk about some of the progress and setbacks for us in the county for the past year. And my colleague, Dr. Ray, is here with us. She can jump in at any point as well. Hi, Dr. Ray. We were both off last week, so we actually are in the same building and haven't even seen each other in person for the past week. We also have a couple of folks who would normally be with us, but they're on summer vacation currently right now, or taking a week off. So some progress that we've experienced. One is we've really laid a strong foundation around our ILT and ICC, strong relationship building over the last couple of, over the past year in particular. One of the things that we've done internally is we've done some significant reorganization. And I would put that both in the progress and the setbacks. When you make big changes like that, it's often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Pieces of that have been tough and challenging, but the outcome of that is that we have a really clear path forward for the next year. The technical elements of that, we have a meeting map, both for external and internal work in support of this, and clearly identified the key players, both within our agency and in our interagency work. And I'm very excited specifically about the intro work that we're doing in historically siloed departments, where folks who are leaning into interagency partnerships have a place and a structure to collaborate for the 25-26 year. So it's been exciting to put that puzzle together and have that ready to go. We also had the opportunity to do some deep listening and learning. Several folks have already gotten a shout out. Michael and Richard have both been really supportive to us. Laura Kane, who's on the call now, has been an influence in this work as well. And we just returned from the Empower Summit in Fresno and had so many rich connections, purposely seeking out the spaces of connections around any collective impact and collaborative learning, and just sort of had an aha about how this work is really like a fractile. That this is happening at a school site level, at a district level, and on the big level, and really not all that different. But just seeing those through lines was really powerful. We're also really excited, although he can't be with us today, that we're going to be including in our T2 work a partner from our county behavioral health department, because leading up to this point, it's kind of been our show, and that's not how you do collaborative work. So LaFonza Gibbs is going to be joining us. And I think you all have had a chance to meet already Salaja Shares, who's off this week from within our agency, who will be supporting. So these are some pieces. Now, the question around the data, I mean, that's really the next big question. And I don't have any answers for it, but we know, that is one of the key pieces of the work moving forward. So I'll pause with that. There was a lot to say. I'll see if Dr. Ray has anything to add to that. And then turn it back to our facilitators.
Nothing else? Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dennis. Really appreciate it, and really great to hear about the good progress and sort of bringing agencies together in Alameda. So that's terrific. Well, I guess I will continue with the alphabetical order. So Fresno.
Good morning, everyone. Like others, We've made a lot of progress with our AB 2083 group. Richard has been helping us, and I love the way that he works. He doesn't tell you what to do. He just kind of gives you a little nudge in the right direction and lets you take it from there. I love that about him. We have finished our MOU, and we have a retreat for our ILT coming up at the beginning of July. We will be sharing the MOU at that time. And we also, at our next meeting, have Mathematica coming to present the report. And hopefully they'll also present at our retreat. A lot of really great, useful information in that case study. And Tammy's going to talk a little bit about community schools and the work we've been doing in one of our districts.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good morning. I'm also coming back from vacation, so I feel refreshed and but also now coming back into where are we at? And but I think one of the meetings what I really liked about was shared a couple months ago was this work is outside the box thinking, and it's some magical work that we do, and you have to have that vision and a mission in mind when you're doing that, because if we stay in our lane and we stay with comfortability, we don't make this forward momentum. So it is a lot of pushing the envelope on things. So I've been doing a lot of reflection on that, and I think that's what we do in Fresno. We are always outside the box thinking and trying to figure out ways to get kids connected to services. And so that's why I really like working and doing all these great, amazing collaborations that we have here. So I just want to say thank you for everybody and including us in this T2 work, because it's been very impactful here in Fresno. And so we've done a lot of internal work as well, around communication and collaboration of services. And we have our committees, and we're creating some subcommittees around that. And of course, one big thing that we've been doing is just one of them is the work with CYBHI, the fee schedule, and community school work, and really that collaboration. And it's really been seen in one of our sites around, we have our wellness center. We're doing a lot of outreach and community school work, and we're really pairing CYBHI and community school work. So we're really seeing that momentum and increasing those services at our site in Washington Unified. And so it's been wonderful because it's just to see some of our wellness coach and our clinicians and our community school work. And now they even have at our the Washington High School, they actually have a physician working there, and we're collaborating with that. And actually, it's a health site now too. So it's been wonderful this past year. And so now looking forward, we're going to continue that work and even expand those services there, and then have that momentum cross to other school sites. So we're excited. So that's kind of what we've been working on.
That's great. Thank you, Trina and Tammy. And so great to see how you're seeing how to bring those two initiatives together to provide more coordinated services, because that was the goal, right? That was what we're hoping to do. Peter.
Well, I already gave you a little soundbite of what you're asking, but I will say that something that will be happening this week, we actually had what we called a design team that was part of our ILT process. And so I'm wanting to leverage voices as we move towards having this integration event for our community partners and the organizations that we're working with and the tribes, and education at the table. I'm going to be meeting with the design team tomorrow, and so that's a smaller sort of subset of our ILT, which it was interesting because I felt like when our ILT would get together, like the big group, we didn't move the conversation forward as much as when we got together as smaller individual representatives, and we kind of looked at that dynamic and why is that? Because I think it's really important to look at the structure of these meetings so that they're as productive as possible and inclusive, and there's a fine line there between what's too many and what isn't. And so that's interesting. I'd love to unpack that a little bit at some point. But meeting with the design team to put together like who really should be at the table in light of what I just mentioned. Like, you know, what is the right number and how is it that it feels inclusive? So that's kind of a balance that we're working with right now as we move this work forward. What we really want to do at this event, I guess you could call it, or this gathering, is to share out the MOU so that there's an awareness in our community so that it's not just a relic, but it's a living document that we can use as a guidepost. So, you know, doing a lot of good work. You know, the community schools, our community schools representative, and some of our community schools folks have been part of this meeting. And we're looking at expanding our attendance and breaking barriers as well next year. So, again, just great work, and thank you all for the mentoring.
Thanks, Peter. And I love that you guys are getting super tactical and moving from that visioning to actually like implementing these ideas in practice and sharing that MOU with your community partners. All right, Armando.
All right. Well, like mentioned earlier, we're in that stage of really building out the ILT structure component through the AB 2083 work. A little bit more about that. We went back and forth from the very beginning around how we were going to start moving this work forward, and wondering whether or not the the AB 2083 and the EAC work that had been happening across the county, if that was the right move. Decided to kind of go outside of that for a little while as part of the core group conversations. Ended right back where we started with with looking at AB 2083, especially after having conversations in that in-person meeting in Marietta with Sarah Rogers around just some of the work that has been happening with that. But outside of that, we've been doing a lot of internal work, one through community schools and just the work that is happening countywide and helping support some of those efforts. Many of those needs assessments are local needs assessments from school sites and school districts that we've been leaning into. But along with that, just some of the work that has been happening with the CHA chip and some of the priority areas around the county assessment that was done earlier last year, and just some of the work that is happening through those different three priorities that we're a part of in supporting priority three. And along with that, maybe Alvaro and Lauren can speak a little bit more to this, but just in regards to the billing schedule, just around some of the work that is happening with CYBHI around that as well.
Hi, folks. Good morning. Alvaro here with Imperial. And just to follow up on what Armando was talking about, we continue to make progress in reference to the implementation of the CYBHI fee schedule. We're actually formed a county-wide consortium. So all folks in the county that are interested in billing will have joined our consortium. We've brought in a consultant with WestEd to really help us build out a robust system that has sufficient capacity for folks to be able to join when they're ready. Understandably, a lot of folks have some level of apprehension with the unknown and really what it takes for them to get a fee schedule up and running. But we've made some progress where we're, again, reinvigorating those meetings, and we have some additional internal partners to help us drive that work. And we have, again, WestEd on board to really help us with that. So we're excited about that. We tell people it's going to be a rough 3 to 5 years, we think, with real robust implementation to have something. So we ask folks for their patience, but we're really excited to see what it could actually bring to our community in the long term.
And just to add a little bit more to that, just around understanding the structures around Imperial County, as mentioned earlier, around just some of the different groups that come together, EACs, Juvenile Justice Commission, and the work that is happening and how we're learning more about some of those specific goals and actions that are happening across the county, and better understanding how some of that work can come to the ILT to have those deeper conversations around supporting countywide efforts and the integration of the work that we're doing. So we're starting to have those conversations around what that might look like once we get started with the ILT. And as mentioned earlier, having too many members to start off with the ILT might be a little daunting. So we are keeping it a little bit smaller, more than likely to the original agencies that were part of the AB 2083 work as we start this moving forward.
Thank you, Armando and Alvaro. All right, so that was a little bit of reflection, especially on the work that's been done to date, including around the leadership structures and data. we're going to do a little bit of looking forward now. So part of what we want to do is really talk about and remind ourselves about the outcomes that we were aiming to accomplish through this effort and how those align with existing priorities in each county and how they're going to be advanced and accomplished again over the summer and throughout this next year. And then, again, we want to spend some time later in this meeting talking about areas where counties are going to need some technical assistance or additional learning. So again, just when we think about the goals of CYBHI and community schools and how they relate to the desired outcomes and outputs for T2, the whole idea around T2, around transforming together, was to leverage and connect these two big initiatives, behavioral health and community schools. And as we really look, as we move into year 3, we want to make sure that it's much more explicit what the shared goals are between these two initiatives. And so Elizabeth has actually spent some time going through the outcomes for CYBHI and the community schools program and trying to really connect the dots around what we're trying to achieve and what those outcomes mean for the work that we're doing here together at T2. And so we did send some of this to you as pre-work last week. We included a slide where we listed outcomes from both initiatives that are outcomes focused on improving family and youth well-being, the ones that we're all working toward, and then some just really distinct and detailed changes, which we're calling outputs in the systems and processes that we think can really help us achieve better results for family and youth. And so you'll see that I think you'll see from that slide deck that the outputs reflect the ecosystem paper, county's implementation steps, and the work of T2. And then the other thing we have is these markers and measures to track our progress. And so I'm going to actually ask Elizabeth to talk about this crosswalk that she did, and then invite some reflections from both Sohail and Navdeep about how they're seeing connections between these two efforts that they're both leading. And so we'll again have Elizabeth talk about this crosswalk, invite Sohail and Navdeep to reflect on these outcomes, and then we'll invite all of you to jump in with some questions and reactions to the goals. So with that, Elizabeth, that's all you.
Okay, great. So great to see everybody. I'm always so excited to be here because I think this work is just so important. And I love hearing everyone talk about their progress and process and the complexities of the work, but also just, what we get when we do this work and unite in care and, really maximize utilization of our resources, both our community resources and our agency resources. And even within, I love Dennis talking about doing that within our agencies, because we have to do that work also. And we have to do that work along with the interagency work, right? It's like intra and inter. It's like an intra-district transfer in the education space, and then there's an inter-district transfer. But I love that because it's necessary. And I recently had an experience where, even within one county office of education, the system of care work was totally disconnected from the community schools work. And so it was like, how do we need to be bringing these together, and how do we actually go about doing that along with the agencies that are embedded within those efforts, which are often the same agencies. I mean, other agencies, like whether you're talking about health or our social services or probation. So I just love hearing the efforts, and it is hard work. So I appreciate that recognition as well. So we were thinking about and asked to really think about what are the outcomes and outputs of T squared, what are we shooting for, and how would we measure our successes. And so I went about looking at the articulated goals of CYBHI and the articulated goals of community schools, as well as what we're building here in T squared in the ecosystem implementation guide in order to build an integrated system. And so what I found was these articulated outcomes for children and youth and families And so we codified those to say, if we're successful in building our integrated system, we want to see, these metrics, these actual metrics for children and families improve over time. And as we implement community schools and as we implement CYBHI, these are the outcomes that are articulated and being measured. So we put those here, and people can certainly, I know this went out as pre-work, but reflect on these, give input on these. I know we're going to have some conversation after I go through all of this. And these align actually quite a bit with when people talk about system of care, the at home, in school, and out of trouble, or even Sacramento's overarching goals for their system development. These do align directly with those as well. So just a reflection there. And so then the next thing that I was really analyzing, and we can go to the next slide, is what we're calling output, which is when we talk about shared vision and mindset and goals, and we talk about shared structures and functions, okay, that can enable us to row towards that shared vision and those shared goals of at home, in school, out of trouble, the ones that we just looked at. When we think about those structures, we have in the implementation guide and within the confines of various bodies of work, including system of care and its expansion to all children, really outline the need for shared leadership, shared goals, which we've been talking about, shared information processes, both at the macro and the micro level, shared universal array of services, so your assets and your gap mapping, trying to figure out what is the array of services that the children and youth need in your counties, and what are your assets and what are your gaps. How do you expand your workforce in order to achieve that universal array, or the most robust array, accessible array you can? And then how do you finance it together? So these have really been the structural components of the builds that we are working towards here. And I went into the detail of each one of these in the next slides, and a lot of it aligns with what people have been talking about already today in our meeting, which is mapping interagency tables, like in Imperial, like, well, wait, we have this and we have that, and how do we unite these interagency tables? Alameda did a phenomenal outline of the interagency tables in Alameda as they were doing this work, which will go in the field guide as an example. Do we have a functional county ILT that meets regularly, or an EAC that meets regularly? And we give a nod to the fact that in different counties, these structures might be called different things. But really, do you have an interagency leadership team, and do you have advisory committee that is implementing that? Have you meaningfully incorporated families and youth into those structures on an ongoing basis? And have you meaningfully incorporated your community partners and organizations into that on an ongoing basis? Do you have cross-agency staffing plan for these structures? And if so, what is it? And have you determined how to unite community schools development with the ILT and the EAC and your site level interagency teams? So that is aligned with, I love the talk earlier this morning, because that is directly aligned with really what Fresno is talking about, which is those cascading structures that go from your county leadership team, all the way down to your site interagency teams, with information, sharing between those, so that the sites can actually access that universal array of services that the county interagency team has committed to and made its goal for children and youth in the county. Do you have a shared mission and vision statement and commitment to working together by, for, and with all children and youth in your county? And do you have an interagency leadership agreements, such as an AB 2083 expanded MOU to incorporate all children and youth in the county. So these are really the metrics for this output of shared leadership that we're looking at, and that a lot of you actually already just spoke about this morning. So that's exciting. Next slide. We then move to looking at shared goals and the identification of shared goals, given all of the information that we've gathered from the counties here and in the CLWG. Have you convened your youth and families to identify needs of children and youth in the county, including identifying and addressing past and current structural inequities and harmful practices that people may articulate? Have you identified a set of cross-system needs for children and youth of the county? And that, of course, aligns with what we talked about this morning, which is what assessments are you already doing? What information do you already have? And are you utilizing that information across agencies in order to identify needs? In one of the counties that we were just working in the community schools work, they're doing a lot of needs assessment. And then in the system of care and on the foster care side, they're doing a lot of needs assessment, but those actually aren't being united. So now there's discussion of how do you actually unite those so that you're consolidating them, and also so that you are maximizing the forums that you are convening. Sometimes the same people are asked to go to different meetings to do the same thing. And so if you can align these, then you can really think that through. Do you have an identified cross-system set of shared process outputs and a children and youth outcome dashboard tied to CYBHI and community schools for your ecosystem so that you can measure your improvement together? Have you incorporated youth and community partner input and organization input into the development of your shared outputs and outcomes? Do you have processes for measuring progress annually together? And do you have processes for transparently sharing progress on that together with children, youth, and families? Next slide. Shared information, we talk a lot about macro de-identified information and then micro data. And so have we determined how to share de-identified data at the macro level in order to identify needs of children and youth? And have you determined how to share de-identified data at a macro level in order to develop shared dashboards? Interestingly enough, someone just said, sometimes there are challenges to even sharing de-identified information. And you really do need to unite across your agencies and your interagency leadership teams to have a conversation if that is a barrier. There is a way, as an attorney in the system for public entities, there is a way to share this information. It's actually contemplated by the law, but you do have to work through how you're going to get there if there are barriers to doing it. And then have you determined how to share identifiable data at the micro level in order for your teams at the local site level, or maybe in the CFT, the child and family teaming processes, to best support and serve cross-system children? These are proactive conversations that you can have. How are we going to share children's information together through universal releases of information or separate releases of information so that you have those actual structural processes in place? Have you figured out how to share information at the micro level to build a new fee schedule, which I know people are discussing here? And have you engaged children, youth, and families regarding developing community-informed ethics and equity standards and transparency for sharing identifiable data? We find when we're transparent about what we're sharing and why, there is an agreement, consent to share that information, because parents and youth want interagency teams serving them and to make it easiest for them to access what they need when they need it. But that requires conversations with them so that we have trust and transparency. Next slide. We talk about the development of a shared universal array of services across agencies, which means the most robust service array you can offer to children, youth, and families, maximizing utilization of your human and fiscal resources in your counties. So have you done work to identify what that universal array of services and supports is? And have you tried to work through transparent pathways to access that? So if there are agency resources in, foster care or probation or health or education that students are entitled to, do you understand what those are across your agencies? And do you have care navigation processes to enable students and families to access them in the most efficient way possible? Next. In order to build and support that universal array, we know through the ecosystem paper and a lot of other work in California that we need workforce expansion. And there are people, I love this group, I love T Squared and the Collaborative Leadership Working Group, because the expertise that we have here is extraordinary and necessary in order to do this work. Those of us that are experts in building shared leadership, are not the experts in building the shared workforce expansion, or necessarily in the fee schedule and how to build the fee schedule and EHRs, but together we do represent that expertise. So have you determined your staffing necessary to support your array of services? Have you harmonized your roles and responsibilities across agencies for children and youth who cross systems so that those roles are understood and services can be maximized? If you have dispute across agencies about who is supposed to do what for a child and family, do you have an alternative dispute resolution process across your ILT in order to address that dispute? I can tell you right now that dispute still exists in a number of situations that even I am consulting on right now in California. And ideally, we have a world where we've decided what agencies are responsible for what and how we're going to coordinate our resources in advance so that families aren't put in those situations in the future. Do we have processes to amplify the voices of children, youth, and families to expand our workforce? They have ideas we don't have, and we need to be listening to those. And do we have processes to create pipeline programs to support and expand our workforce, especially underrepresented groups? And CYBHI is holding a lot of this work right now, I'm excited to say. So that gets folded herein in T Squared's work. And do we have processes to gather and amplify the voices of children, youth, and families and our community partners to expand our workforce? Again, there are ideas on the ground that we don't have. Shared financing. How do we build a new fee schedule, which is the current body of work for everyone? And then what are our cross-agency funding streams in order to support this universal array and our interagency leadership teams and their work? And I think that is it for our slides on outputs. Am I right about that, Renita?
Yes, thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you so much for doing this crosswalk. I know it was a lot of work to bring together these two elements into one, into these common shared of outputs and outcomes. And I think one thing I want to emphasize for the demo counties in particular is that these are intended to provide a roadmap as we're working towards the ultimate sort of integration of these initiatives, but you're not expected to achieve all these next year in 1 year, right? So we're going to spend some time in our breakouts really identifying the most high leverage ones to focus on. So Elizabeth really is providing you with a roadmap for what the future looks like. So with that, I actually want to invite Navdeep Burwal, who is overseeing the Community Schools Partnership Program statewide Transformation Assistance Center, the STAC, and Sohail, to just talk about some of the key connections between the two T2 initiatives and goals of these larger statewide initiatives. And so welcome you to jump in. A couple questions, just really want to ask you to reflect on the outcomes and outputs we just talked about and how it reflects the work that you are leading and how those reflect your aspirations for the work.
Renita, we were just gonna have people set up their screen differently, but we don't have to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are the instructions if you want. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, why don't we just jump in? Because I think we're a little behind time. So
Good.
Sohail and Navdeep, just welcome you to jump in. Navdeep, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Navdeep Pirawal with the Sacramento County Office of Education. We will be taking over the State Technical Assistance Center beginning July 1st, and very grateful for the work that Alameda County Office of Education has done with its leadership in supporting the California Community Schools Partnership Program Technical Assistance Center statewide. We are doing this in partnership with the same three partners that Alameda has held. So University of California, Los Angeles, National Education Association, as well as Californians for Justice. So first and foremost, thank you for the invite to these meetings, and very excited to collaborate on this work moving forward as we transition the STAC over to Sacramento County Office of Education. I've been meeting with Elizabeth. We've been doing some county work around community schools and cross agency, cross sector, whatever you want to call it, interagency work in our county. And one of the things that has become very apparent, which has been very humbling for me, has coming to these meetings and seeing Sacramento present, and me being siloed in the community schools work as a regional technical assistance center. Coming to these meetings, been super excited to see our RTAC partners, regional technical assistance partners in Fresno, Imperial, Orange County, San Bernardino, in these meetings with the two pilots in Fresno of the four, in Fresno and Imperial, and just hearing this work happening around AB 2083 and just the synergy, right? And the how there's such an opportunity. So what we are doing at Sacramento County Office of Education as we are transitioning to the STEC, we are meeting with the California Department of Education. They have also hired an external evaluator for the California Community Schools Partnership Program. This organization is called HUMRO. And we're in the process of currently, nothing's ever final when you're thinking about evaluation, and we should always be looking at, what are the outcomes, and are we reaching them, and also thinking about what other outcomes need to be measured to track our progress in supporting students and families in reaching our outcomes for the Community Schools Partnership Program. So we are currently in the process of looking at our quantitative and qualitative measures that we will be assessing through our annual progress reports that each grantee is required to submit at the site and LEA level, but also thinking about the outcomes. And so when Elizabeth and I I took a look at this, these outputs and outcomes, and thought, oh my gosh, if we can really leverage this can be our North Star, right? If we can leverage all this work happening with ILTs, with the advisory groups, like how can we ensure that at each county, this work is happening in partnership with community schools? We know that there are around 54 of our 58 counties who are receiving coordination grant funding as part of community schools work. If they have 2 or more CCSPP grants in their areas, they're receiving a minimum of $200,000 to a maximum of $500,000 annually. And so to support community schools implementation at the county level. But what an opportunity do we have if there is work happening around the AB 2083 MOU, around interagency leadership teams, around thinking about cross-sector partnerships. How do we really think about this as a whole county office of ed work, right? And not just siloed departments handling. So is it foster youth and homeless services who's really navigating how to implement this array of services in this cross sector partnership? And then you have community schools over here with their coordination grant funding, which the goal of that is cross sector partnerships. So many areas, I think it's being done siloed. So thinking about this work as the incoming State Technical Assistance Center with our amazing RTACs is how do we lift this work that 2 of our RTACs, actually many of our RTACs, I see Orange, I see San Bernardino as well, but really from these demo sites that have been engaged in this. I mean, having come into this to hear Gina and Armando and the team speak, I thought we need this statewide. And how do we do that? How do we get this to all 8 of our RTACs, our regional technical assistance centers, who actually work with counties within their regions who receive coordination grant funding, right? So it just seems so, and I know it was very well thought out on the part of the T2 group, so much appreciation there. And how do we really just now bring those voices into those spaces with the RTACs so that every RTAC is prepared to have these conversations with their respective counties in their region. It's been exciting. I heard Tammy from Fresno talk about how it's organically become a conversation with community schools. I heard Peter talk about, the community schools aspect, of course. And so I just think there's such an opportunity as we move forward to think about this. And the other piece I just want to add as well is last week, actually, at the summit, at the Empower Summit, we had, or 2 weeks ago, I don't remember right now, but we actually had a policy forum. And the 4 areas we were actually looking at was thinking about sustainability of the California Community Schools Partnership Program. And the 4 areas we really honed in on was fiscal, cross-sector, collaboration, which is completely tied to what we're talking about here, ed integration alignment, so thinking about all of the whole child CYBHI initiatives that have come about and how are we aligning efforts to really think about, and capacity building. And so many of what I think Elizabeth was even talking about around strong workforce, right? Capacity building. We know that many of our community schools coordinators are becoming certified as wellness coaches in areas because thinking about that long-term sustainability. So there are already opportunities of this alignment and integration that's happening organically. And this is such a more focused. And so how do we really, not how, but I'm excited to actually think about really broadening this, right, to statewide, to all of our counties, because there's such an opportunity. And actually, this is what a lot of the funding that's it should be implemented is for this idea of cross-sector agencies and the outcomes and inputs. And we know that it's all related. We know that the idea around supporting students and families, increasing whole child outcomes, academic behavior, social, emotionally, is aligned with both of these initiatives. And so very excited for this work, and definitely a big, hats off to the folks who are really thinking about this and integrating community schools and CYBHI.
Thank you so much, Navdeep. Sohail would welcome you to jump in and share your reflections from the CYBHI perspective.
Sure. Thanks, Renita. And welcome, Nav. I just appreciate how much Sacramento and your team has leaned in even before your official start date. And just as you mentioned, thank you so much to Jody, and the Alameda County Office of Education for the great work with the STAC as well. Renita, I think the question posed was how do we see these efforts coming together in the context of what Elizabeth just shared?
Yeah.
And I would say it's important and it's great. It's not actually not too surprising to me, right? Like these missions are so philosophically intertwined. I'm just really appreciative of Elizabeth, showing the actual outcomes, right? The measurements that we have and all of the questions that we need to answer to get there. As Nav also referenced, we've heard from all 4, but I'd call out, the work in Washington and in Fresno that was highlighted today. And Alvaro, I think, was mentioning community schools and CYBHI fee schedule work happening in Imperial. Like these are so intertwined that I think the connections are there at this time. The funding is there, right? From the coordination grants, from the capacity grants, from all these efforts. And we just need to do a better job of being very explicit and intentional about that. I think be remiss not to call out the federal landscape is in the background of all of our minds. And to me, it's all the more of a reason as we have to act now. Because there may come a time where all of us are in this space of having to do more with less. And so while we've got a lot of state momentum here, I look forward to the next part of today's conversation, which is all of those how do we X pieces that have been lifted up here, ultimately, feel free to disagree, but I think that is a question that the implementer is going to have to address most singularly with support of this group, because there's no one answer to that, right? It's going to look different in county A, B, and C, and so it's just going to have to be answered, I think, in a unique specific way in each place. So I look forward to hearing more about that and then focusing on that really for year 3 as well.
Thanks, Sohail. Well, again, a lot of appreciation, Elizabeth, to the work you put into the crosswalk. Gives us, I think, again, a roadmap for where we're going with this work. So that's actually what we're going to dive into right now in our county breakout groups. We're going to talk about outcomes and outputs and dig in a little bit more. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bruni to frame up our next activity.
Hi, everyone. So we are going to take quite a bit of time in county breakouts today to talk a little bit more about these outputs and metrics that Elizabeth just walked us through. Again, it's a really long list, and I want to underline again, the expectation is not that everyone completes all of this in year 3, but it is to set a clear roadmap for where we're going and the kinds of things that you want to be looking at as you move forward. And you're already doing this. These were honestly implicit in a lot of the work already. We just wanted to kind of make sure it's written down and we're all looking at the same thing. So we're going to move into the breakout groups, and we're going to ask you to take some time as a team, as a county team, with your CLWG advisors, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what we want you to do is choose at least one output. So that's, Olivia, could you go to slide 13? Could you back up to slide 13? So we want you to think about these are the outputs we're talking about, right? So each one of these is aligned to, and then Olivia, if you would just go to the next slide so you can see shared leadership, and then the next slide has the metrics for shared leadership. And so each one of those slides, as you saw Elizabeth do, is related to one of those outputs. So what we'd love for you to do is thinking about year 3, where you are now. You all just kind of talked about, the progress and challenges you had in year 2. Think about those and where you want to get to in year 3, and pick an outcome, at least one, from slide 13. Whether it be shared leadership, shared goals, etc. You can pick more, but one at least, and then go to the metrics slide and think about picking 2 to 3 metrics that you want to advance over the next year. So if you pick shared leadership, pick a couple of these that you really want to focus on. We think that this will allow you to focus some of your TT work, which you're already doing, but just to align with some of these goals. And so what we're going to have you do is go into your breakout groups, think about what you want to do next year, pick an outcome, pick 2 to 3 measures, and please don't go into your breakout groups yet. I still have just a little bit more framing to do. You have the deck in the chat as well. So if you want to refer back to any of these slides, you'll have them to refer back to. And you will also have an Ed First facilitator and 2 facilitators, one of which is an Ed First, in each of your breakout groups. We really want to encourage you to pick measures that will really most meaningfully move you along, and that you feel like will actually be a good lever for how you want to continue going forward, that will produce momentum, that will set up the priorities that you've already established for yourselves. We are going to ask you to come back and report out to the group about what outcome and metrics you've chosen to focus on. And this will also be part of how we plan for year 3 and the kinds of things we'll roll out for the CLWG in year 3 to support your goals and outcomes and metrics. If you go to the next slide, then Olivia, these are the groupings. Again, we've had these assignments now over the last couple of meetings because we are working for that that goal to build relationships. And we really want the CLWG advisors who are not part of a county team to participate as advisors, as confidants, as critical friends. We hope that you'll actively ask questions, offer suggestions, push your county teams for clarity. So these would be the assignments. So when Jameen puts the breakout, well, they're already up, but if you would choose the related breakout group where you see your name, if you do not see your name here, go ahead and pick a breakout group. But this is how we'd like to divide. And we're really asking the CLWG members to weigh in as thought partners, as the county teams really consider choosing an output and some metrics to focus on in year 3. Just a note, if you are the only one from your county team, we still would like you to do some thinking, talk to the CLWG members in your team. We want you to make some recommendations, even if the team is not there to fully decide. We want you to really think about what you think your team ought to focus on, and you can take that back to your other team members as a recommendation. But please, yeah, use your CLWG members if you're the only one here from your county. Okay, we're going to go to breakout rooms now. So again, I believe Jameen has pulled those up. So if you would go to your, Jameen, is it?
Brittany, what time are we back from our into the full group?
We will be back into the full group at 10:45. So if you see the breakout rooms, if you scroll down, you'll see everyone's name listed individually. If you scroll down, you will then see the groups. So pick the relevant group. You'll see the county team breakout rooms. And so join the appropriate breakout room. Does that make sense? And if you can't get into one, just stay here and Jameen will assign you.
James, do you know where you're going in Vera? Which group are you guys going?
Wendy, I usually go to Fresno, but feel free to
Imperial.
I think a county that's kind of looks like us would more likely be Fresno and or Humboldt. But again, we kind of just go through and kind of just listen in.
I'm just gonna follow you guys. So where you guys going?
Fresno.
Fresno? Okay.
I'll be in Imperial, James.
Okay.
Okay.
And you need some help getting to yours, Ann?
Yeah, I'm Humboldt.
Take you there now, Ann. I'm gonna use the restroom. I ain't going to none. I'll be right back.
To guide us through the next portion.
Yes.
So, what did you decide? We would truly love to hear what each team has decided to focus on for year 3. These conversations are often idea joggers for folks. So let's dive in. Let's take 2 to 3 minutes for each demonstration site. So rather than saying who would like to start first, I think we should just go in the order that's on the slide. So Imperial, would your spokesperson jump on in? What did you decide?
Sorry, that's supposed to be me, and I'm trying to find the unmute button here.
No worries.
So, we were having a conversation. We were talking about really leaning into the shared leadership around this work, and talking about just how in some of the work that we've been seeing, we have the same people that have been attending some of the meetings that are similar conversations around specific focuses. And so we're really leaning into, um, sorry, let me get my specific notes here. We're really leaning into the shared leadership and looking into, um, gosh, where am I? Sorry, I have a laptop and my screen went everywhere right now.
Take your time.
Sorry. Alvaro, do you happen to have that in front of you by any chance?
Sure, Armando, while you gather your thoughts,
Yeah.
some of the stuff that we discussed around the idea of shared leadership, and Armando mentioned some of those challenges with pockets of good work being done. However, we're looking for something that can provide overall direction to those pockets of good work, and it really had to do with um, our focus of having mapped county interagency tables. We really like that example that was brought up earlier. We think that'll take us quite a ways in this process, and also having a functional county ILT that meets regularly. When the 2083 work came to our county, there was already an EAC that was formed that was doing good work. So when this ILT was formed, it was formed really in MOU only, and we haven't seen a whole lot of regular reoccurring meetings. So we think that's a great opportunity for us if we're able to revitalize that work, that MOU, talk about that expansion and partnership with folks that are actually going to come down and have a facilitated discussion. And then from there, we can end up growing additionally in some additional outputs, but that's where we wanted to start.
Wonderful. Armando, do you have anything to add?
No, just I think that it was a good opportunity for our team to come together, as mentioned in that breakout room, because of vacations and people just being not having time on their calendars. It gave us an opportunity to really get together as a county and have that conversation around where we're at, what we've done, and where we want to go. So we thank everyone that was there as part of the CLWG for supporting that work and the conversations and suggestions. So thank you for that.
Fantastic. So glad that this was particularly useful. All right, Humboldt, you're up next.
Okay, well, I'll go kind of quickly here, but I will say it's just to have so many wonderful uh, thought partners in the room with just me really made me feel incredibly special. But I mean, to have Kenna there and sharing around some of the ways that I think we're not really looking at how we can utilize the fee schedule. Not that we're not open to it, but thinking about mobile medicine, telehealth, and some of these things. So we have advanced a pilot with telehealth with our SB HIP schools, and we hope to expand that next year. So just thinking about that, but. I'm just going to say quickly, I think to summarize where we were at is if you look at that slide 13 and those outputs that we're looking at, I kind of, I said that I conceptualize that as a cascade model that you really have to have those first two to be able to move into the others. And so I really look forward to getting more explicit. And Allie also was very helpful in grounding me, where's your framework and do you have a shared framework? And I said, I think that, we need to give as many opportunities to visit those frameworks and to create fluency in those things because we're not going to meet these goals around our shared information or our universal services and these things until we have common language and a common understanding of what those goals are. So we are moving in those directions, and I'm feeling quite optimistic with our signed MOU and the partnerships that we have. So again, thank you all for the support. I've been in the hot seat today being the only Humboldt person here, and I appreciate your patience with that.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Peter. Let's move on to Fresno.
Hi, yes, I want to say thank you so much. The structure really helped us because we were like, can we choose all the arrays? And so it really gave us a way to focus our where the direction we're going for next year, because we're doing all this work. And so, so we rated everything, and we went with shared goals. And our shared goals is really what we need to work on, because we have some great work happening at the AB 2083 and our internal advisory, but yet we're not having shared goals and direction around the mission and vision for our work within our internal departments. So we're really going to spend time focusing this summer, and Mary Jane Puffer is going to help us with that and help us guide us for our next coming year. But we're going to do some planning, and then Trina also shared that I believe in July, early July, there's going to be some great work that's going to be happening, a 4-hour meeting for the internal for the AB 2083. So this really gave us some direction. So we're excited to do this work around our shared goals for next year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tammy. Finally, Elmina.
We're in a similar place with Fresno, and what Peter said about this being cascading really resonates as well. Shared leadership is an area where we have some good progress. Obviously, still more work to go, and shared goals seems to be a key priority for us at this point. Really, the hook for the other pieces. We were really poised to do that, and the resources that came out today, Elizabeth's sharing of that sort of cross-section of CYBHI and CCSPP was really helpful. Some really, really rich conversation within our breakout group. So just deep appreciations to the consultancies there, along with some possible emerging tools that can help us with this. One of the things that was specifically appreciated was resources that help to look at this from angles that are going to be most familiar to other agencies, and not specifically from the lens of a county office of education. If we're going to do this work, it really has to be collective impact work. It really truly has to be held across our whole county. So we had some great ideas to make these goals relevant to multiple agencies, and really have a process to identify share goals that is genuine, and gives us the traction then to be able to identify the shared, the next 4 focus areas and priorities within those.
All right, thank you so much. So I believe I am passing it back to James to close us out.
So we will, I believe, Jameen, have we sent out the dates? If we have, we are sending out the dates for 25, 26 meetings,
Yeah.
right? And we are also, and I keep saying we, but the leadership team, executive team for T2 will be meeting in July to prepare some final steps for year 3. We are working on developing that technical assistance, so be looking out for that. And also we should be putting the exit survey into the chat team, if we can do that. Thank you. And so again, thank you all for a great year 2. We're making great progress. Want to make sure to go further though in this next year. So those are the dates. So see there, everybody's already on it. So those are the dates. We will be, if you have not received those, please don't hesitate to reach out to the T2 email. We'll make sure to get those on your calendars for next school year, or next year, not school year, because everybody's in school, but next year as well. Anything else, Dr. Houston, Sohail, anything you guys want to say before we close out? We're at 11, so make sure, recognize y'all. Breaking barriers. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Happy summer.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Likewise.
Thanks everyone
Thanks
for
all.
joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a great summer.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.